Good afternoon. We're going to get started so we don't waste a second here. Uh, this is the special county health committee meeting. We have one resolution to talk about, and that is to set the guaranteed maximum price for the construction of the Health and Human Services campus. Could I get a motion to put it on the floor? Vice Chair Coates, and a second. Second. Sharon? All right.
Jumping out of her seat there.
What's that? Just leave everybody hanging on the edge of their seats for a little bit. All right, I believe we have a slide presentation.
Thank you, Chairman Renaud. County Administrator Sorrell and I will walk through both the uses and sources of the funds in regards to Peoria County's Health and Human Service campus. This is the current rendering of the county's HHS campus. It looks slightly familiar to the renderings we've seen in the past. However, key highlights that have brought the project to where we have it today include reduction of the two-story subweighting, which include reduction of the clear story, including overall square footage, as well as glazing or glass. The change to the exterior community room from a metal paneling to a brick facade. And then finally, recognizing that this is going to be a multi-department campus, that there's clear signage and logo placement that is centered around this being entirely a county facility. As seen on page 5 of the packet, the value engineering completed includes these 16 items, then their associated downstream changes. Both myself and Scott, as well as the design team here, would like to recognize Board Member Rowland. Mr. Rowland provided essential feedback and direction not only to regards of value engineering, but helping us establish a really comprehensive list of those alternate bid options. So in terms of uses, or how and what the funds will be utilized for, overall, the total budget is coming at $22,339,416, with 84% within the guaranteed maximum price, or GMP, and 16% within the non-GMP. To further break down the guaranteed maximum price, hard construction is coming in under $16 million, with $14,665,160 in the hard bid construction, and then the allowances of $1,225,000 for the two rebid divisions, which was landscaping and exterior cladding. Based on the alternate bids of brick versus metal cladding, River City Construction expects that with the rebidding that we should see a savings about 6 figures. For the alternate bids accepted, which is at $8,463, this was primarily focused on a return on investment. So it relates to long-term maintenance of our parking, as well as establishing the roof to be able to take on future solar options. All of these will then impact the last bar graph you see here, which is the soft cost associated with the GMP, which accounts, and within those soft costs, 54% of those costs are associated to something that is based on a percentage of the hard cost, whether it's a contingency or what have you. So the further breakdown of these GMP related soft costs are on page 13 of your packets. In terms of the non-GMP soft cost or cost overall, this includes our architectural and engineering cost, fees, but the largest percentage is furniture, fixtures, and equipment at 51% of all of the non-GMP soft costs, which comes at $3,670,350. Of this $1.9 million that is just for furniture, fixtures, and equipment, 46% of those is coming for specialized equipment, which is related to dental, medical, kitchen, autopsy, and morgue. 43% is furniture, and then there's a built-in 5% for overall contingency. Now, there are grants to support procurement for both purchasing furniture and equipment. And the health department and the coroner's office are currently actively seeking grants right now. However, these grants are reimbursable grants, meaning that the spending authority is still required before we can procure these items and then be able to get reimbursed from the grants we're applying for. In addition, there's draft signage costs are associated in the furniture, fixtures, and equipment breakdown at $87,000. This is also included in the GMP cost. Until that signage is finalized, there is still 87 in here. But we do know there is some of that funding established in the hard bid as well. So I'll turn it over to Scott to talk about sources.
All right, so the next few slides are going to cover sources, which is how and which buckets of revenues we're going to use or what we recommend to use to fund the project. As Monica shared and as is in the materials, the total project sources matches the total project uses of $22,339,416. On the on the sources side, that's divided into three categories: current, amendments, and future. In the current portion, which is the blue portion in the pie chart, that includes appropriations that this body or the county board has approved either in the current fiscal year or in prior fiscal years, and that includes $15,250,000, which is 65% of the total. The amount that's before the committee and will be before the board today, $7,839,416, or 34% of that total, represents amendments to the existing budget, and then the last $250,000, that 1% green sliver of the pie chart, is from the Solid Waste Management Fund, which was always planned and intended to be appropriated in FY24. As we presented to you in the packet starting on page 6, there are multiple sources used to get to that $22.34 million total. As we talked about, that $15.25 million is shown here in the far left column, and those are, again, approvals that the board has made either in the current year or in prior years. In terms of how we're recommending that the amendments column be broken up, is we have 3 different sources, which I'll talk about here in a moment, but 60% of it comes from the reserves of the health department. As noted on pages 7 and 8 in your packet of materials, it's documented that the Board of Health has been intentionally saving for this project in compliance with the County Board's financial policies since 2018. That $4.7 million drawdown that we're recommending will keep what's left in the Health Department fund in compliance with our fund balance policies, plus an added cushion for any future economic, or at least the next economic downturn that will likely come at some point. We just don't know when. The remaining $2,639,416 comes from ARPA and the fund balance thereof, and then there's $500,000 that's recommended from the capital project fund. And then in the third column, you see this is very small, $250,000 for FY24 from solid waste management. In terms of impacts that start on page 14 in the packet, we noted several different impacts, but the one that we really wanted to highlight in this slide deck presentation are the alternatives to what might happen should the minimum number of votes not be achieved today. And so there's really 2 alternatives that we presented. The first is abandoning the project completely, including the roughly $1.7 million in fees that we've either already incurred or are contractually obligated to pay Farnsworth and River City Construction. What is also a component of that, but is unknown and uncalculated, is that at this time is the impact of completely abandoning the project would have on our reputation in the construction community for future bids, whether it be this scaled down version of this project or any other future capital improvement that we would be going out to bid for. The second alternative is a complete redesign that would effectively see a rebuild of only the health department at the Sheridan Road complex. That does have some impacts in and of itself. That would most certainly create added design fee cost from Farnsworth, because now we're doing a complete redesign, and that's really not what they were contractually obligated to do. It would have an impact on construction cost, because there would be a delay in construction, so the impacts of construction inflation would need to be applied. And depending on how long that delay actually is, we would then see costs for winterization of a partially completed building during any winter construction season. Additionally, the county coroner would then need to remain in their current facility, or in his current facility, and by our own facilities master plan and other documents has been documented to be shown as inadequate, and there's added capital costs that we would need to be considering for that facility. The regional superintendent loses her opportunity to consolidate her operations into one location, and from the health department's operating budget, we lose a revenue opportunity, because part of the strategy here was to have the ability, which we do, to charge some of Beth's non-county functions some rent. The same operating budget, the health department operating budget, would also take a hit as there is added time to the space that the health department is currently leasing on California and at the Human Service Center for divisions of the health department that are operating out of those spaces. Those temporary locations are a negative impact to the services that are being delivered because they are less than the ideal, and so it makes it harder for clients to get to and from. It makes it, and it's also scaled back in terms of what all the services that are able to be delivered from those locations, because they're intended to be temporary, and we would be extending that temporariness of it. Finally, over the last several years, the health department has worked very hard on building a culture of the workforce, and not going down the path that's recommended today would, I think, have a detrimental effect on that culture, and would speak volumes to the workforce in terms of the county board's prior goals as it relates to being an employer of choice. So we presented a packet to you with a significant amount of information, that both being background, all the various sources of revenues that resulted in 3 funding options, the bid results, the guaranteed maximum price, and all of the parts of the uses and expenses related to the project. We use that information to formulate our recommendations, and our recommendations before you today, and those are reflected in the resolution, is that we establish or set the guaranteed maximum price with the River City Construction at $18,669,066. As I've said at prior health committee meetings, the only way that number increases is by mutual agreement of River City Construction and the county, and that is not something within my spending authority. That would require another vote of the county board. The second component to our recommendation is how to structure the budget amendment, and that is we're recommending option 2, where we would appropriate $4.7 million from the reserves of the health department fund. We would appropriate $500,000 from the capital project fund, and we would appropriate $2,639,416 from the reserves of the American Rescue Plan Act fund. With that, Mr. Chairman, we're happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Could you explain real quick just the hierarchy of the funding sources and how
Sure.
they're exhausted?
So the order in which they're presented here on the slide is the order in which we would recommend and we would intend to expend them. First, we would expend the $4.7 million of the Health Department Fund, next the Capital Project Fund, and last the American Rescue Plan Act. Part of what was in the write-up and is recommended, but we don't have to do it today, we can do it as part of the FY24 budget process, is to recapitalize this $500,000 from the Capital Project Fund with earned interest that the treasurer, through her investment policies and the good fortune of where interest rates are, will be able to retake the interest earned from ARPA and backfill that $500,000 into the capital project fund. The key point there is The U.S. Treasury has said, number one, we can earn interest on ARPA dollars, and number two, there are no restrictions on that interest income use and no timeline on when we have to use those dollars.
And that could potentially be paid back in excess, correct?
Correct. I think as we move into the FY24 budget process, and we'll obviously work with the Finance Committee about this, I would likely recommend to the board that every dollar of earned interest income from the ARPA fund be put back into the capital project fund.
Thank you. First, we'll go around and answer questions, and if you could refrain from comments at this point, and then we'll circle back around if you have comments. Yes.
So the guaranteed maximum price is not a guaranteed minimum price. So if it goes under budget, we are not required to pay that amount, correct?
That is correct. Guaranteed maximum price, that is the most that we will pay. If the project goes over budget and it's not adjusted, River City Construction eats that and takes it as a loss. If the project comes in under budget, then we only pay what is actually billed, and we don't get a check back from River City Construction. It's just money we don't expend on the project.
And then for the ARPA, the extra ARPA funds, while I know that how the ARPA funds are spent is based on what the board plans, do we see that coming out of the bucket of capital improvements of things that we have been looking at, or is it across the board in the different buckets?
So I think from our perspective, and as we wrote it up in the materials, the executive committee is going to have a policy discussion at their May committee meeting about those funds, and I think that policy discussion would be the most appropriate time to identify how you want which things are not going to be funded by approving this budget amendment.
Any other questions from anybody? Any board member, even if you're not on the committee? Okay. How about comments? Anybody like to make a comment? Member Ricker?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Just from a comment standpoint, first off, I want to thank Monica and the team for what work they've done. I think I've been very clear as one board member of maintaining a budget. So as one board member, I'm going to be a no vote only from the standpoint of the proposal did not come in alignment with the budget and the priorities that the county board had set. That's all. Thanks.
Any other comments? Yes, Member Allison.
I wanted to see if we could get kind of a summary of thoughts from Mr. Rulin, since he was involved on this, and I'd like to know your thoughts on where things are now.
Absolutely, if you care to share any comments.
I'll do my best. I feel in the process now, realize that this has been going on, River City and Farnsworth, Monica, Scott, a lot of people involved for a lot longer than I've been involved. However, during my involvement, I have seen very good cooperation in subjects that relate to lowering costs, from value engineering to redesigns that were somewhat substantial. I've seen Monica offer things that may not have been ideal to her operation of the health department, but she takes a very responsible approach to fiscal responsibilities, to being frugal where possible. There were some maybe suggestions of furniture that seemed a little ostentatious, and she said, we don't need that. We just don't need that. So the attitude among this group in the planning process, at least the part that I was involved with, has been more than responsible to do their part to keep the costs down. They took that challenge seriously when we saw the first estimates come in substantially, almost double the original budget numbers. They took that to heart, and I'm really impressed with this team and the work that they've done. And I don't think the building is overbuilt or ostentatious. It appears to me to be suitable for the intended purpose. And I do believe, and I think that the other team members would keep an open mind on this as well, that along the way, during the course of construction, we're going to see that there's some expensive materials in there. There's some things that need to be reviewed and carefully decided along the way. And my goal is to drop the price even further. Now, I know that doesn't necessarily play directly into the architect's hands, nor into the contractor's hands, but if we can make this building function the way it's intended and serve the constituency that we represent, and we can do that a little bit cheaper, and we're helping not only the users of the health department, but the people that are paying for it as well. So I'm really comfortable. I'm going to be a yes vote.
Thank you, and thank you for Terry for all the work that you've done, and to Scott and Monica. I know it's been a lot of work, and I completely agree with you. And that was something that I wanted to bring up. Is just because we're voting on this price and identify these funding sources doesn't mean that we're going to stop trying to cut costs. But we're going to do that in a way that's not going to sacrifice the quality of the building also. And I know we've spoke to that before, that you feel that even some of the alternatives are better options, maybe will last longer, less maintenance, and it's going to save us money. So I appreciate that effort that you've put forth. Yes, Dr. Blair.
I'd like to hear from Ms. Henriksen, Mr. Harwood, and Ms. Kreider if this budget meets their needs. Do you think the building, as we believe it'll look like now, meets your needs?
I'll defer to both Beth and Jamie, largely because I have had the privilege of being involved in this intimately through this whole process. So,
Welcome, Mr. Corner.
Thank you. I have a tendency to be very verbose, so to answer your question, yes. That's that. I think everyone around this horseshoe right here, we're all elected to serve our public. And we're elected to serve our public and to fiscally responsibly do that. And Monica has demonstrated that, I have, Beth has, and we would like to continue doing what we do in an evidence-based best practice model in a building that supports that premise. Staying in our current building with water leaking into our morgue yesterday doesn't fit that model. So I'm going to encourage you guys, and every single one of you, I'll tell you right now, have constituents that use that health department, and I can guarantee you this, you have constituents that will use my office. So in the best way we can say it, we have to have a facility that serves our public, period. And I have a highest respect for you, Terry, and going through this process with the board members. I feel that the process was done very well, more so since you entered in to do some of the valued engineering to meet the needs of our public, and that's what we're called to do. So I appreciate the efforts. The answer is yes.
Thank you. I just want to let you know, I did have a conversation with the coroner in helping to try to identify other funding sources to help with this cost. And one of the things that I approached him with was that we currently outsource our x-rays to OSF. We have to actually take the deceased there and have the x-rays done. If it's an outside agency using our facilities, OSF just charges them the x-ray fee. Well, we'll be able to start charging that fee or accepting that fee since it's going to be our equipment. And the coroner has agreed that we should take that fee and put it towards the equipment that we're purchasing for the place.
We're pending a grant right now, a very substantial grant to help with our equipment. So to Terry's point and to your point, moving forward, there might be expenses we can take off of what's already built into that based on what we can fund out of that grant. So
right. I think it's a good indication of the work that we're trying to do to help bring that cost down and how everybody's involved in that process. Welcome.
All I want to say to the process is that I met with my leadership team, which you don't see because across the hallway in my office is only myself and my assistant and the 4 county employees. My leadership team is 12 beyond me and my assistant that are heads of my major divisions, my directors of my different departments, everything from preschool for all to my professional learning team. But our capacity is growing. I'm currently writing $1 million grant right now for federal dollars, so fingers crossed that would be another director. And for us to get together, we're everywhere. So we do a lot of Zooming, which thank God for that. So this has been something, 2011, since I came to this office, that we have wanted. So this was just a way for us to accomplish that. And that would be, quite honestly, a dream come true. I'm not so caught up in the paint colors or the carpet as much as that I could look across the hall and see my professional learning team. I might cry.
Thank you. Any other comments? I just wanted, go ahead, Mr. House.
Well, I don't think anyone will be shocked as to how I'm going to vote, but I do want to make some comments. First of all, that I certainly recognize that the health department was in need of a major overhaul, and the coroner's morgue a major overhaul. And so I'm not against spending some money, but I am very disappointed in the process. I'm very disappointed that we had a groundbreaking ceremony before we even had bids. I'm disappointed that we moved everybody out before we even had bids, and now we're getting the language that we need to get going, because we're paying rent. Well, I didn't like the idea of moving everybody out, so our hands are kind of tied now in that situation. And I also didn't like the fact that the first bid came back so unreasonable at $28 million. I think that was so inappropriate when you have $14 million budgeted in your budget. I just feel that the decision was made, even though we went through all the protocol to rank and analyze all the different locations and options and everything. I think the decision was made to build a new home a long time ago. Not a new home, I'm thinking of the nursing home, I'm sorry. A new health campus. I feel like we didn't even really look hard enough at buying other buildings and renovating them. I talked to Winnebago County, Sangamon County, McLean County, all 3 counties that are very similar to ours with a large municipality inside of us. And they all 3 bought a building and renovated it. So I asked, why do we always have to be the best and the brightest in our projects and spend the most money? I mean, I just don't think that's responsible. I think this thing is $6 to $8 million too high, and so for anybody that says you don't want to spend anything at all, I just kind of gave you an idea that I think it should have been closer to 12 to 14 million, all in. And the other important factor is we have a lot of needs around the county with the jail and all the other facilities, and the labor market is really going to be tough the next several years. And we have to make sure we can keep our good employees. We have to make sure that, and part of that is health insurance, and I'm not advocating, large raises or anything like that, but we have to be competitive. And it's also a tight labor market because of the availability of people. And so I think that's going to create a challenge. So any extra money, that 6 to 8 million less that I was hoping for, would have been very beneficial for us down the road. And some of these other projects. Our roads are crumbling out in the county, and I know you can't use ARPA money for roads, but you can certainly use ARPA money for items in the general fund, and then on the back side of that, it can come out as a benefit. I believe that the employees of the county and the other department heads are watching this vote today. And it's going to be very important to them. And I'm afraid it sends the wrong message. I don't think any of them would say we don't need to do something, or that maybe 12 or 14 million dollars wouldn't have been reasonable, maybe even 16. But 22 and a half I think is an unreasonable amount, and I think we could have done a lot better for the taxpayers of our county.
Yeah, Sharon?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To address a couple of Brian's concerns, we voted several months ago to replace the building. There was a vote. So we voted to replace the building. So I also would like to say that this is going to have over 100 of our employees in this facility once it's constructed. So that's a significant number of our employees.
Any other comments? Yes, Matt.
So the whole time this has been thought of more of the health campus. At what point, or do we know, I guess for Terry and Jamie, at what cost of this is for the coroner, and at what point did the coroner become involved in this building process? And I guess also a question to Jamie is, so what is Plan B cost? We know that the building needs something. Have you had any other cost or an idea of what it is? For what, any idea, I guess?
Well, we should ask Brian because he's costed out with comparable counties, and particularly have you costed out Sangamon? Because I've talked with the coroner in Sangamon County for the potential aspects and costs of their building. So Brian probably knows because he spoke to him. So we should ask Brian.
I failed to be able to get a hold of the right people as far as the coroner situation, but I was just relating to the health departments, but so I do apologize for that.
All right. Do we have a timeline for Matt as far as when the coroner's office was brought in?
We were brought in from the beginning.
Correct. So coroner just said, for those of you that may have not heard, both the coroner, the regional superintendent of schools, the health department, and the Sustainability and Recycling Conservation Office have been a part of the conversation since the inception of the project.
And at this point, we don't have a cost of the coroner's portion of the building.
In the current iteration of the design, no, because it's fully integrated into the single building that we have. In the first iteration of the design, where the coroner's office and the morgue were a standalone building on this campus, that cost was approximately $5 million.
Any other comments? Yes, Linda?
I don't think anyone here would say that I haven't had criticisms about this project from the beginning. But I do have confidence in your chairmanship, Chairman Renault, and the fact that we now have a county representative, which I wanted from the beginning, in Member Rulon. I think we can continue, as Member Rulon suggested, to do value engineering and review this project. That's all I wanted from the beginning. And as I had confidence in Chairman Williams, I think that you will be focused on this. I also am very confident that River City Construction and Farnsworth, as our partners, will do a very good job with this project. But I really want to see, and I believe there will be, a future focus sharply aimed at our facilities that are in such need of repair, beginning with the courthouse, the jail, the Salt Dome, and others. And I have confidence that that will be the case. Only as a result of that will I be supporting this project.
Thank you. Any other comments? We'll go Terry and then Jim.
Some of you may know, some of you may not. I was pretty active, and I think a number of other people were pretty active last evening and this morning with one of Member Daley's concerns, and that is, and Brian Alcesser's concerns, that there are a number of other properties that need attention, and calling into question the expenditure on this building when we're having trouble maintaining others. First of all, this building checks 2 off the list, the coroner's office and the health department, which are 2 of our worst buildings. So we can take those 2 off the list today, I hope. But we've also had discussions, and I've had some assurances that we will be very soon discussing the possibility of a new construction management and maintenance effort to get those other projects elevated, whether it's the highway department, the jail, any place that has a list. And I can promise you that list is pretty big. Most of you have this. If you don't, you know, Jimmy can email it to you, or you can have my copy. But as part of this project, a happy coincidence is that it's brought these other projects to the forefront, and I feel very comfortable. We have some assurances that these will now elevate in stature and get done sooner.
You, Jimmy.
Thank you, Chairman Rowe. I just wanted to comment that I'm proud of this board. That we have 5 new members that got thrown into this after votes had already been had, and everybody rolled up their sleeves and really started asking some very good questions. From the current board members, nobody sat on the sidelines, and this has been a team effort from day one, and asking tough questions and really wanting to dig into this. And I also am glad to see the fact of, I know numerous people on this board, when we're not only talking about this facility, the election commission and other buildings, they all went and toured these buildings. We had a meeting out at the jail, and some of the facilities that we've been talking about for years, but always quick to cut money back from, and first pile of money when we ever have to make cuts has always been from capital. Our facilities have really, it's been eye-opening, I would say, for people to see some of our facilities and the state that they're in, and that there has been some serious discussion, and that there will continue to be discussion on that. We've had some creative outside-the-box thinking, like what Chairman Renaud did. Those are the type of things that I've seen that this board really come around and rally around to try to make this a good product. I need to thank Chairman Williams that started this conversation out of her committee, Chairman Renaud to get us to the finish line on this, and Member Rulin, who's put in hours of looking and taking deep dives in this. This has been a team effort and really strong leadership in this county. I also want to throw out some other ideas that we've talked about. We've never had perpetual care funds for buildings, but we've talked about having a full-time facilities person or creating a perpetual care fund as part of the budget for facilities going forward. Maybe not a ton of money, but a small enough money where it adds up every year. But we've had some very creative ideas come out of this. And so from this member, I want to thank this board for really rolling up your sleeves and going to work. And it hasn't been rosy all the time, and there's been some tough questions, and there's been some very good arguments. But this board handled it very well and very professionally, and I'm happy to where we're at today. Mind you, we were talking about what are we going to do with Gift Avenue and the health campus well before COVID even hit, and we were wondering how we were ever going to even pay for this. This ARPA money has been a huge benefit to the county that one way or the other we were going to have to do something. And this is not us putting a huge burden on the taxpayers by having to go out and bond for a facility. This is us, and I remember Mr. Rulin's first night on the board was comments on this, is not to stick taxpayers with a big burden. We are taking regional office to the next step under Beth's leadership. Jamie's to the next step under his leadership. And the health department, Monica is the most recognizable face in this Peoria County. I know she hates hearing that, but under COVID, she proved it. And she rose to the challenge just like this board did. And now we have a way to pay for it without sticking taxpayers with a ton of debt. So this is something that we had to do no matter what. And I had concerns when we talked about it, and it went up, and then it went down, and similar question. They all dug into it too, and these facilities are going to meet their needs. not be some glamorous facility or not too terrible of a facility, but it will still be purposeful and last for this community and take us forward. So bunch of thank yous. I know there's more thank yous to staff, to the electeds, and everybody else that got us here today, to River City, to Farnsworth and the team. I know we came back to you numerous times and said, go back to the drawing board. That can be frustrating, but they did it, and here we are today. I think this is a proud moment for Peoria County, and this will be a proud moment moving forward and give our citizens they've always had a first-class health department, but now they'll have a first-class building to be in too. So thank you around to everybody. And again, one more time, and Mr. Rand that started the conversation, Chairman Rand, I cannot forget him either. But again, thank you to Chairman Williams, Chairman Renault, and Member Rulin for all the time and effort to get us here today.
Thank you very much. Yes, Steve.
All right. Thank you. I'd like to maybe make a couple other points off of Jimmy's comments. Thank you to Terry, first off, for all that he's done. Kind of linking back to Linda's comment of we should have had an owner's rep to begin with. I think quite a few of us now have come to that understanding. So with that, I didn't realize until I talked to Mr. Rulin recently I thought what we asked him to do started when he started and would end when we take this vote today. My understanding now is that he's going to be providing guidance and overview all the way to the last invoice for this project. One of my concerns as a board member, fellow board member, is that we're asking one of our board members to spend 1,000 hours type in the next 24 months of his personal time. You know, if you would hire an outside person with his skill set and talent, you'd be paying probably 40, 50, 80 grand to do this. More. But I guess my point is I want to be cautious as a board member. I don't want to take advantage of a fellow board member. He's been very gracious, giving his time, but it's probably not fair to ask him to give all of his time. And it's not a knock on Terry. I'd love him to continue doing this, but I don't think we can ask him to continue doing this at no cost to him. The other point I would make is that I want to make sure we don't put him into a conflict as a board member, because typically as a board, we're supposed to stay in policy. And now we've got a board member we've asked to get involved in daily discussions, reviews, site reviews, construction. There could be some challenges that we would put a board member into that's not fair for him. So I put those two out. We really need to step back and consider, and my last comment around it, and I'll be coming off of Jimmy's comment, is that I've been one that's pushed really hard that we need to get these facilities done. I'm going to advocate that we put a full-time focus with a resource, if it's a contract resource or an in-house resource, to prioritize facilities, finish this project, prioritize the other ARPA capital funds, and then facilities ongoing, as Jimmy said, as we don't just fix it today, we have to have a perpetual fund and a plan and address facilities. So I think there's a longer term need than just today. And that's probably one of the biggest outcomes from this project that I think we really need to address. So I'll leave that to the chairman to decide how to move forward.
All right, thank you. Any other comments? Last call for comments? All right, I do agree with Jimmy. I think this is probably been the most involved that I've seen the entire board be in an issue. I know everybody's done their homework, and even, I think it's important even for the people who aren't going to support it, that, you have your reasons why, and you researched it, and I appreciate all the work that everybody has done on this. So with that, I will call the vote. I'm going to go do a roll call vote on this one. So, Member Allison? Member Blair?
Aye.
Member Bryant? Member Coates? Member Daly? Member Duncan? Member Elsasser? Member Hare? Member Phelan? I am an aye. Member Ricker? Member Salzer. And Member Williams. Okay. That is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Is that 11? Yep. 11 ayes, 2 nays. So this will pass to the board in about 15 minutes. Are there any public comments for this committee? Any miscellaneous? Okay, we're adjourned. Thank you.